Vice President J.D. Vance is caught in a firestorm of his own making, calling the Chinese peasants.
To make it a little bit more crystal clear, we borrow money from Chinese peasants to buy the things those Chinese peasants manufacture. That is not a recipe for economic prosperity.
What's the one thing the entire US media machine seems to agree on? That China is the villain of the century. So villainous, in fact, that some YouTubers may even admit Russia isn't evil, but they still insist that China is. Think about that. That's how intensely Western media works to distort China's image in the global spotlight. But here's the twist. China doesn't have the soft power arsenal to fight back in the information war. It can't outshout Hollywood, Washington, or Silicon Valley. Yet, despite all that, something happened recently. A Chinese military exercise that didn't just impress viewers, it shocked analysts, including me. Because hidden inside that exercise was a clue, a revelation about how China plans to fight future wars, a strategy so unusual, so morally disciplined, that it puts every Western military to shame. So what is this secret? What makes China's approach so radically different from anything America is doing? Let's dive in. And if you want the unfiltered stuff we can't say here, hit our Telegram link below. I'll see you there. If you don't live in a Western country, you've probably seen the hypocrisy up close. Take the United States, for example. They've been the aggressors in nearly every major conflict they touch. America has invaded so many countries in the last century that China hasn't even done a fraction of that in thousands of years. And let me say something I can't fully explain because of YouTube's rules. Where are the 120 million Native Americans who once lived across North America? They're gone. An entire civilization erased so drastically that scientists say the event cooled the planet, literally lowering global temperatures. And let's be honest, America didn't make those people disappear with magic tricks. Now fast forward to after World War II. Even if we generously ignore the fact that the US nuked 2 Japanese cities, America has still been involved in over 30 conflicts, including 12 major wars. To keep this video short, I'll focus on just one example, but understand that the same strategy applies to all of them. Iraq. During the Iraq War, the US bombed the country's infrastructure so brutally that living standards collapsed to levels comparable to the 6th century. Iraq only has 2 rivers surrounded by desert. When you destroy water purification plants and water supply facilities, the suffering is beyond what the human mind can process. But the US did it anyway, along with bombing gas pipelines, hospitals, transportation networks, and basically anything required for a society to survive. Why? Because this method is called collective punishment, the same strategy Israel is using on Gaza right now. The logic is simple and horrifying. You break a country so completely that its people fall into chaos, eventually turning against their own government. And there's an even darker layer to this. When an invading army enters a starved, dehydrated, desperate nation, civilians are far more likely to resist, giving the invader a legitimate excuse to bomb even more civilians and turn the entire region into hell on earth. Now you understand what's happening in Palestine. It's not random. It's a strategy, a disgusting plan to break a nation. And yet the West does this for decades and still calls China the villain. So now when we compare China and Taiwan, we suddenly realize just how lucky Taiwan is that the United States isn't their neighbor. In China's recent military exercise, they unveiled a strategy the world has never seen before. Instead of missiles, instead of bombers, China used drones and balloons to create a massive jamming bubble, powerful enough to disrupt an entire nation's communications and electronics. China is building the strongest electronic warfare capability on the planet. But what does that actually mean? First, understand why the US and Israel don't use this method. Because their preferred strategy is simple. Bomb the enemy into submission. Level infrastructure. Cripple society. Break a nation until it's begging for mercy. China, on the other hand, has chosen the least destructive path to win a war. Inside China's electronic warfare bubble, all communication collapses, from civilian phones all the way to high-ranking military networks. That means no coordination, no defensive plans, no offensive response. Generals are left blind, unable to issue orders, and the entire country becomes disoriented. If China used this on Taiwan, the only communication left might be sending smoke signals to their generals, like something out of ancient history. But jokes aside, this method doesn't destroy infrastructure. It simply freezes a country's ability to communicate. Now here's the incredible part. China has a massive drone fleet and one of the most advanced missile arsenals in the world. If they wanted, they could use the same brutal strategy America uses. They have the capability, they have the range, they have the precision, but they choose not to. They avoid the path of destruction. They choose the least harmful way to fight. So now tell me, who's the real evil here? China even recently revealed a new superweapon. Subscribe if you want me to cover that in the next video. And yes, China could strike any target with surgical precision. But this latest military exercise proves something important. China doesn't want to invade anyone. Even with the massive tensions over Taiwan, I firmly believe we will never see China start a war there. Why? Because China has a plan to reunify with Taiwan in a way the world has never witnessed before. A method that might be the first of its kind in history. Remember when Trump said Greenland belongs to America? Then Canada? Then even the Panama Canal? Yes, he literally had a plan to invade Greenland. And recently he said he's going to meet President Putin in Russia, Alaska.
The president posting to Truth Social just moments ago that he will meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin next week in Alaska.
I'm going to see Putin. I'm going to Russia.
But here's the difference. While the US chooses someone who behaves like a first grader to lead the country, China has a chess player in charge. Every time I see Xi Jinping, he looks calm, almost like he's been meditating for hours, relaxed, controlled. Because unlike Trump, he knows exactly what he's doing. So why is China's strategy genius? Let's start with America. What do you see? Sky-high homelessness, crime, drug addiction, depression. Statistics show that around 26 million Americans may struggle to afford food next year. And we're not talking about a poor country, we're talking about America, supposedly one of the richest nations on earth. Now compare that with China. Go on YouTube and search Americans visiting China. Every single one of them is shocked. They were told China is unsafe, poor, chaotic. Then they arrive and see no homelessness, one of the safest countries in the world, cleaner cities, and a standard of living higher than what many Americans experience. Why? Because unlike the US, China puts its people first. While Washington sends hundreds of billions of dollars to Israel, money that could turn America into a paradise, China invests in healthcare, infrastructure, and development. Despite having 4 times the US population, China still manages to outperform America in key areas of daily life. But why am I telling you this? Because more and more Americans are choosing to leave and live in China. Now imagine 10 years from now, half the US struggling with homelessness, the economy collapsing from bad decisions, while China becomes even richer, safer, and more advanced than it is today. Countries like Taiwan will start rethinking their choices. This is my opinion. Every human wants a better life, and Taiwanese people are no different. And I believe that one day, they may choose reunification with China. And that's Xi Jinping's master plan. He wins entire nations not by war, but through economic strength, a high quality of life, and a military so advanced, so overwhelmingly dominant, that even China's rivals know attacking China would be the most foolish decision imaginable. Because China respects the dignity and honor of all nations. Unlike the US, they don't threaten half the world with bombings if they don't bend the knee. Like this video if you support China's rise, and subscribe so you don't miss future content. For uncensored material, check out our Telegram channel. Thank you for all the support. You're the best. And as always, it's an honor. This is Eastwind Brigade, where our voices unite and we rise together.